Hello, bonjour everyone, and welcome to today's virtual programming 101 event for staff and volunteers of children and youth programming. My name is Jen Prue, and I'm the Director of Integrated Care Delivery at CHIO and representing the Ottawa Child and Youth Initiative, OCYI, today. I will be your moderator for today's session. If you would like to hear today's session in French, please select the French button in Zoom for simultaneous translation. Please note that for today's session, only the moderator and panelists will have video, and participants will be muted. As we begin our discussions today, we open by honoring the Algonquin people on whose traditional unceded territory the City of Ottawa is located. We would like to extend this respect to all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, their ancestors, their elders, and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. The Ottawa Child and Youth Initiative, otherwise known as OCYI, is a collaborative of over 80 community organizations and agencies with a shared commitment to ensuring that all children and youth in Ottawa have the opportunity to reach their full potential and grow up great. Today's event is an initiative of the OCYI in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa, Christie Lake Kids, the City of Ottawa's Recreation, Culture, and Facilities Services, and Crime Prevention Ottawa. This session will include expert panelists who will be sharing their virtual programming knowledge and lessons learned during the COVID-19 pandemic related to critical hours programs such as homework clubs and before and after school programs. A recording of today's webinar will be available and posted on the OCYI website at www.growingupgreat.ca. Today's panelists are Caleb Abbott, an arts programmer with the Recreation, Cultural, and Facility Services Department at the City of Ottawa, Alicia Lamoureux, supervisors of the Leaders in Training program at Christie Lake Kids, and Linnea McPhail, the virtual program coordinator, the Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa. If you wish to ask a question during today's discussion, please use the question and answer function in Zoom, not the chat. We will make every effort to answer as many questions as we can and share answers to those that we've missed after today's event. I'd like to start our session by inviting each of the panelists to share a bit about their programs and backgrounds. So Caleb, are you able to start us off, please?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks everyone, and thanks for having me. As noted, I'm an arts programmer with the city in Recreation, Cultural, and Facilities Services. In normal times, I work in a team called Community Arts and Social Engagement. What we do normally is partner with internal and external arts organizations, not-for-profits, and we take a community-led approach to the programs that we do. So we would approach a community organization or a specific community and learn about what they're doing, what they need support with, and generally speaking, base it in the arts. In these times, that is extended to our virtual programming initiative. We started last summer and gradually introduced virtual programming to now we're running full steam with it. So that was a response brought forward by the pandemic, but it is also something that's more than likely going to continue beyond that as well. So that's what I do.
That's great. Thanks so much. And next we have Alicia.
Thank you. Hello, beautiful souls. I hope you're having a nice rainy lunch somewhere cozy. As Jen said, my name is Alicia. I've been the Leaders in Training program supervisor with Christie Lake Kids for the past 3 years. CLK's response to the pandemic's restriction was to create an abundance of children and youth virtual programs. I myself create, develop, and facilitate 4 levels of a leadership program that has been successfully engaging youth virtually from all over Ottawa. I'm so happy to be here today, sharing with you what I have observed over the past year.
Perfect. Thanks, Alicia. And we're all enjoying your cozy ambiance in the background. So thank you for that. And finally, last but not least, we have Linnea.
Hi, my name is Linnea. I'm the virtual coordinator for the Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa. The BGCO has developed their online program in the spring of 2020, and over the last year, it has grown and dozens of children and youth log in virtually weekly. We also have downloadable content, a YouTube channel, and keep things updated. My educational background is in mindfulness-based art therapy with a specialization in the development of psychoeducational programming in community settings. I'm very excited to be part of this panel, and I'm grateful for everyone who is here. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks, Linnea, and thanks to Alicia and Caleb as well. So we are going to begin then with our first focus area, which is around marketing. And this section will be open to all three panelists to comment on. So there's sort of three questions here that we wanted to pose to you. How do you market to youth and draw them to your programs? How do you engage with youth on social media? And how do you build virtual connections with parents and families? So Caleb, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I want to just preface it by saying the virtual programming that we offer in the city is for all demographics. So youth is one part of that. Where I may differ from the panelists is that the way in which we do our promotion, and that we think about marketing on more of a global and not necessarily a specific scale. But as it relates to youth, we have a team that takes care of our social media and online engagement. So we have those supports which allow us to really focus on the programming. But typically speaking, we market our youth programs to families or parents or guardians as they have, the means and the access to get their youth into the programming. So we don't necessarily at this point have meetup type things where we're engaging with the same group of youth on a regular basis, unless they're part of a course. So that's also something to note, that we have courses and workshops as part of our streams. So youth may be together in the same dance class online, but it's not, it's focused, I guess, simply on say the dance or the visual art or the fitness class specifically. We use the general social media platforms. So we have Instagram, Facebook. We do get some content out onto YouTube, but we really, again, look at targeting where guardians or adults are looking and focus primarily on that.
Super, thank you. So Linnea, over to you.
So I'm lucky to work at the BGCO, where we do have a lot of connections and support staff. We have provincial youth outreach workers who are working directly in the community, connecting members and future members to our programming. Virtual programming has been a space to connect with the clubs around the city and also with other organizations. So it's great for that. Earlier this year, we were able to connect with another BGCO, but the one in Okanagan. And without having that virtual platform, these little programs could not really be supported before. As for social media, a lot of the clubs do manage their own accounts, and we're very fortunate to have young staff to help sort of navigate these fields. They've been able to share with us what they're doing. There was this really cool mixed media project that was worked on, and there was virtual input, and it's absolutely beautiful. You should probably check it out. Family engagement has always been a core practice at the BGCO. Connecting virtually almost makes it easier because you end up getting to meet their parents and their siblings and sometimes their pets. Parents are normally not too far away to help out when they can. And it also can promote fun interactions between families and siblings. Virtual programming brings programming into the homes, and parents can actually see firsthand what their kids are doing, which wasn't an option in the clubs before. All programmers really do strive to make connections with their with parents. There's lots of phone calls and emails, and we also have a virtual calendar which stays updated.
That's great. Thanks very much. And Alicia, what are your thoughts around the marketing piece?
So for me specifically, I found the best way to market is by asking the youth, the participants themselves, if they have any friends or know anybody that would benefit from the program. Families as well, if they know families that could benefit from programs. It's kind of like an internal referral of some sort. So this widens the pool of participants and has the added bonus of creating an environment where the youth feels more safe and open to share because they have their friend right next to them.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, everyone. So we are just going to move on now to our next theme. So some questions related to virtual space. Sounds like a very high-tech, cool term. So a couple questions here. So how do you set up a virtual space? And can you tell us briefly about some of the best practices and a little about the technology or the platforms that you're using in your organization? So I think we're going to go in reverse. And so Alicia, we're going to start with you this time.
For sure. So I think for setting up a virtual space, the first thing that you need to do is start with addressing the uncomfortability of having a virtual space, especially at home, and the awkwardness that some youths might feel being on camera while they're in their home with their family. So starting off with that and being open is so, so important. Then to set your guidelines and expectations of the participants throughout the program and kind of allow them to take some ownership of their space by creating their own expectations. Express to youth that they're in control of their space at home and to take time to set up their space so it feels safe and open for them. So having a time during program where you ask your youth to go out and find things that make them comfortable, like a tea or a soft blanket or some candles or their journal, anything really that they really relate to that makes them feel safe so that they're more willing to be open and share their feelings. Also to take some responsibility for their space. So advocating to their families that they need the quiet, they need this room, they need to not be disturbed while program is going on. Allow for a break throughout program. That is super, super important so that they have the opportunity to turn their cameras off, their mics off, and take a deep breath. I would suggest 5 minutes. More than that, they might start thinking about something else. So 5 minutes is nice, short, gets to the point. Also express to youth that the purpose of the program and the goal that they're committing to showing up for, they need to know why they're there. They need to have an intention for that virtual space, whether it's I'm here to dance or I'm here to do yoga or I'm here to talk about my feelings, whatever it is, they need to have that intention. And then also, this is super important that I found really, really helpful, is to have a number of volunteers, caring adults, role models that are role modeling the engagement, the participation, the sharing, the openness is very important.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Linnea, what about you?
Oh, that was lovely, Alicia. Thanks. So early on in the building of our virtual space, we decided to use Zoom as our primary virtual platform. Safety was always our #1 priority. There are tech features in Zoom that have promoted safety, especially in a virtual space. This includes meeting passcodes, having waiting rooms, the ability to mute people or turn their camera off can be very helpful. At the BGCO, staff are always working in pairs and are subject to complex health and safety training. We ensure that all staff have a full understanding of the capabilities of the technology. We also have support people, practicum students, volunteers who are there to support and, somewhat like Alicia said, engage and show those positive Zoom behaviors. Special attention is always spent on relationship building to ensure that all members feel heard and safe. Collective agreements or rules are set early in the program and are frequently revisited to ensure that all members are tended to. Relationship building is intentionally paced in every program. Although we strongly do encourage all members to have their cameras and mics on, we do recognize that not everyone's going to feel comfortable doing that all the time. We sometimes have fun little turn your camera games on to encourage sharing on that sense.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. And Caleb, how about you?
Yeah, I'm just going to build a bit off of what Linnea said, because for us, there's really two ways. There's the virtual space that's more symbolic. Then there are the physical spaces on the participant side and on the city side, and they both have different requirements. The security is a big deal. So we also went with Zoom because you can filter in through the waiting room, you can run attendance, stuff like that. So usually when you know who's in the room, it's generally safer. There's a liability. So if we're running dance or movement-based things, the instructors will give a little disclaimer at the beginning, make sure you have enough space, that type of thing. Clear the area so that it's physically safe as well. And then we have moderators as well. So we have staff who acts as the host, but then they will be present throughout the workshop or the course, so that if there's questions in the chat, or if someone gets kicked out because their internet dropped and they need to be let back in. So we're constantly moderating, but that could also be management issues as well. So if for youth there may be the situation where you want to put someone back into the waiting room and have a discussion with them one-on-one, and then bring them back in, or put them into breakout rooms and take those moments to try to manage the space as best as you can. And then the technical side, outside of Zoom, we're set up to offer more movement-based and then seated-based programs. So in the movement-based ones, our instructors all have headsets. We take the presentation of it very seriously most of the time. Participants are paying, so we do believe that there should be a standard level of quality. So we look at that. And in terms of bandwidth, we keep those things in mind as well, because if everyone's videos are on, it actually pulls the bandwidth down, and it may slow the participants, might create too much lag, and the participant just kind of gets left out. So we do leave that open. We encourage cameras on because it keeps that real-time kind of community feel. But we're also looking at things like Discord as well for more meetup type things that are built on, socializing, less about this kind of format. But we really focus on the real-time interaction piece of it as well, which is built into Zoom. I think that's about it. I think there's a note that if there are any specific technical questions, it's the Wild West out there in so many ways, and like the YouTube videos that you have to watch and learning about the technology, it can be a massive barrier. And we've all been going through it in different ways. So depending on what you're looking for, there are resources like us out there that you can connect with to be like, how do I actually set up and make the technology work? Outside of just the built-in webcam type thing or built-in mic. So I think Jen's got a little a message about that for everyone.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, everybody. And I noticed, I think it was Caitlin in the Q&A that was just asking, what platforms are you using for virtual programming? So I think, Linnea, you mentioned Zoom. Caleb, you mentioned Zoom as well. Alicia, just wanted to check in. Are you Zoom again, or is there something else you guys are using?
No, it's Zoom. We found that Zoom is the best. Yeah.
Perfect. And I have a confession to make that, 2 years ago, this time 2 years ago, when I joined at CHIO and OCYI, I didn't actually even know what Zoom was. I'm one of those people that hadn't heard of it before and didn't know what it was about. And so it's quite remarkable how even in a year, frankly, during COVID 2020, very quickly had to become familiar with what Zoom can offer. And even still to this day, doing this type of session, learning about different functionality and features. So it certainly does take some time to, as you say, to become familiar with what is the power of some of these tools as well. So thanks for the question, Caitlin. That's great. Okay, so I did want to just mention that if you do have more specific questions sort of outside of today's event around some of the technology and whatnot, please feel free to send an email to info@growingupgreat.ca. So that's info@growingupgreat.ca. And you could always request sort of an e-introduction to one of our panelists today if you wanted to connect with them more directly. So I'll just leave that there. Okay, so next, let me just make sure I advance the slide here. Whoop. So we'd like to talk about how to keep virtual programming engaging. So a few questions here to think about. So how do we keep the programming stimulating and interesting, knowing now that we're not, doing this so much in person? Is length of time a factor? And how do you include physical activity into your programs? What are your thoughts on offering challenges and incentives to participate? So Caleb, from the recreation and culture perspective, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, so for us, it may be a little bit of an easier response in that we have people registered for specific programs, generally influenced by some kind of support, whether that's the parents signed the youth up for a dance class or something. And those classes ranged between 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on the class. So how we would approach answering this question would be to say, the content of the class and the instructor we rely heavily on in this regard. So we try to find as innovative programs with instructors who are already used to teaching online to bring those things into play so that you might just kind of gloss over like a drawing class, but if there's like a hook to it, or if there's maybe a technical component or We look at Raspberry Pi and coding stuff, or online computer animation and things like that, that may be hard to find elsewhere. So we look at it to keep it stimulating through the lens of the content itself. But we don't have the challenge necessarily of my colleagues here in the panel, because it's very prescribed amounts of times and you show up specifically for that. Most often, we don't need to worry about the physical activity if it's not already a physical activity program, because again of the short amount of time. So it doesn't really fall on us to worry about, okay, they've been on camera now for 3 hours, let's take a break kind of thing. But how we structure and the content of our programs is the focus. So one other thing is for our April break programming, for example, we looked at, instead of saying there's this whole day camp you can sign up to, we had it sectioned off into a build your own kind of thing. So you could do dance in the morning and Raspberry Pi robot building thing in the afternoon, or one or the other, depending on the parent's schedule or the guardian's schedule, which is also something that, you know, it's not part of this, but that is something to bear in mind as well. So yeah, we look at ways of adapting our program to try to meet the needs of parents and guardians.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Linnea, what are you doing with the Boys and Girls Club around this piece and engagement and physical activity?
There are actually heaps of tech resources out there to help build virtual programming: Canva, Google, online games, Jackbox, activities, Kahoots, tours, virtual sightseeing, YouTube, Spotify, like the list goes on. There's so much out there, and incorporating new things can help keep members engaged. Finding fun and engaging activities is probably the best part of my job. As mentioned earlier, building relationships and facilitating connections between members is an excellent way to get kids and youth coming back, and it is likely something that we are all craving right now. Getting members involved in programming and development can help participate feel more amped up. It is also likely that they can share fun stuff to do online. It's best to stay flexible and always have a few activities up your sleeve that require little or no supplies. Program packages can actually also be helpful in ensuring that everyone has the same stuff. We generally keep programs between 45 minutes and 2 hours, shorter programs for kids. In the past, we've had events with multiple breakout rooms, and it gives the chance for our members to have some agency over what rooms and activities they visit. And it somewhat simulates the pre-pandemic in-person clubhouse experience, where members can easily move from one activity to the other. In virtual space, it gives them that agency, and they might not have a lot of that in their lives right now. We also do take frequent body breaks because we all need it, not just kids and youth, but us big kids too. Physical activities such as yoga and dance or restorative Pilates have been quite easy to convert into online programs, but there are other ways to stay physical through games, Simon Says, scavenger hunts, even simple little stretches just to get people kind of moving around. We actually have a Walk This Way program, and we've incentivized members by giving them pedometers and encouraging them to collect sort of step points. And it's kind of like we've turned their world into a bit of a virtual video game. Members who come to the BGCO are given access to quality sports equipment, academic supports, arts and crafts supplies, what have you. We do want to give our virtual members a similar experience.
Fantastic. And Alicia, what about you and Christie Lake Kids?
Well, just like Linnea and BGC, we're kind of very similar in that sense. The biggest thing I found is engaging youth in the planning process of their program. So asking them what it is that they want to learn, what it is that you want to know about, and kind of having them in that process gives them ownership and engages them to come every week. Also, I found something really helpful, articulating your words when you are facilitating program and asking for participation consistently. So prompting the youth, keep going like the entire time. I found very helpful. And just like BGC, having lots of dance breaks, just breaks in general. I've also noticed less presentation and more discussion is a way more engagement for them. End goal or incentive, I love that. I do the same thing. Having that incentive for them to come, it gets them coming every week. Having excited volunteers and mentors that come and participate. If they're excited, the youth are going to be excited. Kind of keep that vibe going. Short and simple. My programs are about 2 hours. Sometimes they go a little bit more, but we do have consistent breaks. And if engagement is low, we kind of feel the vibe. So we're saying, you know what, they're not feeling it. They're a little tired. Program is done. There's no use in forcing them being there if they don't want. We also do online yoga and dance, fitness videos. We have guest instructors sometimes come in. The kids get really excited about that because it's what do you want to learn about? And we bring that instructor in, gets them engaged. And challenges, they love to be challenged, whether that's like a plank contest or a push-up contest or something. They love to come and show off their skills. And one more thing, goal setting. Goal setting, I think, is a great thing to get engagement. If they come every week setting a goal for themselves and knowing that if they can accomplish that goal and they'll come next week and say, I've accomplished it, like let's do another one. I found that is really great for engagement.
Fantastic, amazing ideas. And I totally agree. I think I forget who said it, but we probably need to do more of this too as adults. So I love these ideas, and I think very creative and really does to help keep things engaged for the children and youth. So the next sort of set of questions are related to supporting the virtual space. And so I think, you've touched on some of this, and see what else we can contribute around this. So in terms of how do you deal with screen fatigue, right? How can you support youth struggling even when it is within a positive space? And what can we do when things go wrong? Because obviously sometimes things go wrong. So are there certain strategies that you can use? So maybe Linnea, we'll start with you here.
Not just screen fatigue, but I find I also get sitting fatigue from sitting down too much. So I'm going to stress again, taking lots of breaks, standing up, moving, wiggling everything out halfway through, quarter way through. I like what Alicia says, being sort of the gauge of when to do that. It's cool. Virtually, we have the opportunity to practice these regrounding activities, and they can really carry over into real life. The best way to support someone struggling virtually is to listen with them, connect with them, be curious about their experiences. You might need to adapt programming and facilitation styles to meet the needs of everyone's participants. Maybe you can brainstorm collectively on how the group can be safest for all members. I like what Alicia said about addressing the awkward elephant that is talking on a screen. It's not a natural thing. Whatever is most authentic and natural to your agency, setting, and members is the best way to do it. When working with technology, things go amok. I find knowing that that will happen makes it easier to accept when it happens. Things can get addressed as a group collectively. Members are definitely our biggest allies. In the worst case scenario, we can do mics and cameras off because we have that power, which is not something we have in person. So we are mindful of using that. We can also put members in breakout rooms if we do need to have those more in-depth conversations, which is another Zoom helpful feature.
Yeah, very, very good points there. And Caleb, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to echo a bit of what Linnea was saying, but also when you're thinking about your programming, sometimes it's very helpful to think about it in context of every demand that's on parents, guardians, and youth. So when you're looking at, offering your course, that really fits into a youth schedule of probably being on screen for a lot of the day, unless they're doing in person at school. So as excited as we get about our offerings, sometimes, it adds to that, and that burnout is. So when you think about the programming, the unique qualities of that programming, I think help offset some of the barriers that are there for motivation to just show up to a meeting sometimes, or a course or whatever. We also structure our programs to try to deal with that. Like I was saying about our April break example, or our summer camps that we're looking at right now, to make it more in control of the the youth or the guardian and parent, so that they can have just in the morning instead of signing up for this full day thing and really only showing up for them. Just giving them that flexibility to make it fit within their existing schedules, I think is a good thing. Struggling youth, in some of our programming that we're doing virtual, this could be a reality. Like we do our Jumpstart I Love to Dance stuff, and so that's free programming that we're streaming virtually. We just started last week. Something that's front of mind from an organizational perspective, if you put someone into a breakout room, I don't like, I can speak on behalf of my department in that can't be a one-on-one scenario. So to protect our instructors and our staff, if you put someone in a breakout room or in a waiting room, usually there should be someone else with you, unless you're qualified counselor or therapist that can go into those settings. We can't, and we just for safety, we ensure that there's always two. That can be two participants or an instructor and the moderator, whatever it is. And then in the breakout room or in the waiting room, you can work through stuff. And yeah, what Linnea said with when things go wrong, technically, it's generally to have a plan. Like if it drops, we'll launch the meeting again, come back on. We have a lot of resources that we share with participants to say, check this if your mic's off, or check this if you can't connect your video and stuff like that. What to do when things go wrong in terms of if a course goes sideways in participants, there are issues in that regard. It is to use the breakout rooms and the waiting room to just put things on pause and sort it out, and then either end it for the day, recognizing the situation, or to launch it with a clear start. But having general rules of engagement kind of helps, that everyone's on the same page about. Yeah, that's all I got.
Fantastic. Before I hand it to Alicia, I'm just noting in the Q&A that Caitlin is wondering, Linnea, I know that you listed an awesome sort of inventory or list of different things that are available. I know I'm trying to think of some of them off the top of my head, but you said Spotify, and there's a whole bunch of other either platforms or resources you mentioned. So maybe while Alicia's responding next, if you're able, Linnea, just to kind of type in maybe some of those resources in the Q&A if you're able, and then that way the participants can see what else is out there. Great. Okay, and Alicia, last but not least on this question.
Awesome. So I find three things help me the most when supporting the virtual space and virtual programs. One being their environment, their physical space, so what's around them. If that's healthy, if they have the space and the opportunity to be open, then that supports what's happening in program. And I give that to the youth and make it sure that they know that that's their responsibility and that they have ownership over that. And with that, the second thing is just family awareness. So the family knows that they're in this program. They know what time it starts, what time it ends, that how their youth cannot be disturbed or should not, or doesn't want to be disturbed for that. And that supports their space, that supports their programming. And the biggest thing that I found that supports virtual spaces are mentors, volunteers, other caring adults. When you have mentors in the group and they have the opportunity to go out into breakout rooms and talk about what they need to talk about, what happened over the last week or some of their goals that they're setting, really supports their space and engages them and gives them that opportunity to talk about how they're feeling. Yeah.
Fantastic. I know Linnea is typing, so I don't want to throw the next one to her just yet because that's a lot of multitasking. But I did have a quick sort of follow-up question on this one because I think it's interesting. We've been sort of responding, kind of around screen fatigue and the positive space for the children and the youth. I just wonder off the top of your heads if you have any comments or ideas for staff who may be kind of dealing with the fatigue around virtual. And if not, we can hold it till the end. But I just thought, it's interesting to think about that perspective. So I'll open it up if anyone wants to jump in.
Yeah, I can say something personally what I do for fatigue. If I'm feeling really tired in a certain day, and I've already been on my computer for a couple hours, something that I really enjoy doing is I get up and I dance for 30 minutes 45 minutes before program starts. I listen to music, I sing at the top of my lungs, I move my body as much as possible, and it just gets me going. It gets my emotions on point, it gets my body on point, and I feel a little crazy after I sit down, and the youth are always like, you have so much energy, and it's like, yeah, because I just sang a whole bunch of songs before I got here, and it gets them engaged and it gets them excited and full of energy. So something that I do personally for the youth.
That's fantastic. I love that. I think I might have to start borrowing that for even before some of my meetings. Okay, Linnea, I'm going to hand it over to you to kind of wrap up that that piece about. Or sorry, we're going to move on to the next question. We've already talked about that. My apologies. So I'm just going to move us along here. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Third time's the charm. The next topic, obviously extremely important one, which is around mental health. And so number of questions here that we wanted to pose to you. So we're going to start with Linnea, then Alicia, and wrap up with Caleb. But you know, what are your sort of experiences or some of your guidance around how to have conversations with youth in a virtual space? How can mental health be addressed virtually? How to do a virtual mental health check-in, because that's a new way. And what about your staff mental health? So Linnea, I'll turn it over to you.
We do need to talk about mental health. Many children, youth, and adults are all struggling right now. A lot of us are on the edge. Numbers and colors somehow describe our collective stages and phases, and it can change without warning. We have had a very challenging year. And although there might be an end in sight, there is likely some psychological effects of isolation that will linger. We need to talk about mental health. We did before the pandemic, and we certainly do now. If a child is old enough to experience these feelings, they're certainly old enough to talk about feelings, wellness, and mental health. Talking about mental health reduces stigma, which is the #1 reason people do not seek out help and support. We need to make sure that everyone knows that it's okay not to be okay. It is okay to ask for help. We need to normalize these experiences, make space to talk about mental health. Know your resources, have intentional and educated conversations. More importantly, make sure your staff and programmers are trained and have these difficult conversations. Providing them with support and encouragement and a space to debrief is essential. Be knowledgeable, get trained, or partner with a local agency who knows stuff about mental health. It can be a heavy conversation, but it can also be fun. You can even make a game out of it. Community connections, group programming can be healing spaces. Consistent program outlines can help create a liminal space where healing can take place. Check in with members regularly. You can even include indirect ways of asking people how they're doing. You can do anonymous polls and surveys as well to help with that. There's a growth mindset and trauma-informed training that is offered to all staff at the BGCO. These trainings help make programmers feel more confident in their roles as youth workers. We have a growth-based space not only for our members, but our staff as well. The virtual club has created a space for staff to connect. We have wellness meetings that focus on building connections and having fun together. In the Q&A, I shared a virtual puzzle thing that you can do. It's really fun, and it can help with group cohesion and productivity as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Alicia.
Awesome. So in my program, we have a mentorship aspect. So every youth is partnered with a mentor from the beginning of the year, and they follow them throughout the year. And sometimes if the youth stays with us for numerous of years, they have the same mentor over years, which is incredible and has had so much success. But that's been our biggest tool to use during this pandemic. We want to make sure that the kids know that it's important to talk about mental health, just like Linnea said, and to acknowledge the trauma that they have experienced over the past year, because it was traumatic and they did have to go through it. And some of them had to go through it in very toxic, unstable environments. So having that consistent mentor there every week was incredible. So I just want to talk a little bit about that specifically, how it happens. So mentors come in And they have about 30 minutes to check in with them about how their week is, how their goals are going, and whatever they want to talk about. So they go into a breakout room, so they're separate, and then it's a private conversation. Sometimes we do have group discussions, which are very important, so the youth know that they are not alone, and they work very well, but it is also important for the youth to have that one-on-one time. It's important for the mentor to express why they're there, and the meaning of the meeting is to support their well-being. Have the youth lead the conversation, and of course have questions, have prompts. If the youth is being open and they're talking about their feelings, leave it to them. Just keep them on track, because they do like to go off track a lot. And then yeah, keeping the same mentor. If you can't do it for years, that's understandable, but at least having a consistent person that's the same person that they see there every week. So that safety, that stability, that consistency is there. Talk about and help encourage youth to develop healthy coping strategies. That is so important. So however that looks like to them, and it looks different for everybody. Same with adults, same with everyone. Everyone has their different types of way to cope. So just talking about that, having conversations about that, and trying to encourage and promote the skills that develops their well-being. So that could be healthy communication, positive self-talk, positive body image, meditating, yoga, anything that works for them, their family, their friends. It could be art, it could be journaling. It's literally whatever makes them feel better is perfect. Thank you.
Those are fantastic ideas. Thanks so much. And Caleb, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I think we differ a bit because of the way we structure our programming. We don't have mentors or anything like that. And it's generally speaking, it might be the same group for 6 weeks, but it's a different kind of space. And they're in those spaces for a specific reason. Often our hope in this regard is that there may be a therapeutic component in the work that they're doing. So if it's dance or visual art or fitness, it's to really work on that. There are the two sides of it though. So all of our city instructors that do our teaching, we focus on being a resource for them. So we have our employee and family assistance program. So if one of our instructors is struggling, we have supports there for them. If the situation were to arise where something would happen with a youth in the program that wanted to speak to the instructor, we have procedures in place to help deal with that. We recognize that we're not in that role fully, that our dance instructor may be the point person for the youth to feel safe to do this, but that it's really important that that's handled well. So we're there to support our instructors to ensure that if that arises, that it's done safely and respectfully. But again, not to go back to the previous question, I feel there's a bit of overlap. Like a lot of the times I feel like when we talk about mental health and we say like, oh, how do strategies for youth? I think there's strategies for all of us. A lot of the time, screen fatigue is real. Working in your basement for the last year is real with your little tiny window up here. It can start to wear you down, and it's important that we recognize it within ourselves so that we're able to offer a better service to youth or our participants. If we're not taken care of, they will struggle. So that needs to be front of mind as well, that taking care of yourself will help you take care of others or offer better programs or be more invested in your work, however it works for your specific organization. But to not maybe say, this is a youth thing, because it's an all of us thing. And especially in the scale of what the pandemic has done to a lot of us, just worn us down. And this kind of small M mental health, not the big M. So it is real. So to check with your organizations to make sure there's procedures in place to support youth who are struggling, to support your instructors or your mentors, because they'll need support as well, to make sure that from an organizational perspective that those priorities are on everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Definitely agree with what you're all sharing is the importance of this, and feeling equipped both to be able to help children and youth if they're expressing these concerns, and making sure they're connected to the right resources and experts, but also making sure we're taking care of ourselves and our staff. I did want to let everyone know OCYI has a really helpful resource called the Know What to Do Guide. So the Know What to Do Guide is aimed at increasing awareness of and navigation to available mental health supports and resources for children and youth. So there's different types of services that can help people get through difficult times. And so the guide really does help to make it easier to find the support that you may need kind of all in one place or one document. So the guide was created in collaboration with the Kids Come First health team and some of the partners there. So Ottawa Public Health, Suicide Prevention Ottawa, and then OCYI. So you can find a copy of the Know What to Do guide in both English and French by visiting the growingupgreat.ca website. And it's under the COVID-19 resources section on supporting mental health and addiction. So growingupgreat.ca, the COVID-19 resources section. It's called the Know What to Do guide. So hopefully that's a resource there that people can tap into if they like. So we're now just approaching our last topic, and I'm checking my time. We're really good for time. It's 1:45. Just going to advance us here on the slide. There's the guide right there, just so you can kind of see the look and the feel of that, and the website. And I think we've also chatted in the link. So thank you for that. So when we think about considerations for different age groups and the programming, is there anything our panelists would think are, special needs consideration? What are those things that we want to pay particular attention to for different age groups? So Caleb, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, for our programming, it's critical that there's some form of support. Generally, again, there's a cost to taking the programs. There may be, a scheduling issue or support for that to make sure that the participants are showing up. But specifically, we do have instructors who specialize in age groups. So if we're going to offer a course, like we have a muck and mess course that's really meant for the parent and the child to be present, but the instructor knows how to educate in that specific age group. I feel for our programs, a more difficult area is teens and youth. You're getting to that more independent stage where structured programming, versus you're competing with socializing with friends and going out and doing stuff can be a challenge. Really look at, again, trying to innovate in this area and draw youth in based on their interests or what we can find in terms of research that youth are doing. So it could be stuff on gaming. So we have like intro to game development course, something like that might spike the interest. And with middle school and younger, I feel it is less of a challenge for what we offer because they do, generally speaking, have that support. So they're either forced to take it or they have an interest in taking it, but there's someone making sure they're taking it. So it's a bit of a different reality there. But again, it's content. Content drives everything. And if your programs are engaging and interesting, or relatable to the lived experience of the youth or where they want to be. So if it's music production or beat making or intro to like DJing, stuff like that, you might catch those youth that are getting a bit older who are refining their tastes a little bit more. So we try to look at the content.
Super, thank you so much. Linnea.
We generally do a lot of sort of tech check-ins with all of our members, but especially with kids, just knowing what kind of device they're on, if they're on a computer, an iPad, are they sharing it with one of their siblings? It's good to know that sort of stuff before the program starts, just in case you do have to make some sort of last minute accommodations. With young kids, we like to have all of the activities be really hands-on. Program packages with supplies can be handed out and delivered. It gets a little tricky when liquids and glitter are involved. And when on Zoom and working with kids, it helps to be a little extra animated. I sometimes feel like I am on a child's TV show or I'm a cartoon character, but you can make it fun. Zoom also has this fun option that I guess I could demonstrate with you now, where you can have little filters. And like, look, I'm wearing sunglasses. You can have costumes optional for all your programming now. and make it fun, because kids are going to like that. And if they're having a good time, they're going to want to come back.
Fantastic. The glasses look perfect, by the way. I feel like we should all have those on right now. Okay, Alicia, over to you.
Just like Linnea said, for younger children, it's so important to have material stuff, hands-on, whether it's Play-Doh, food, construction paper, whatever it is, having something that they can touch and feel and follow along with, so important for engagement. For the middle school age, I find that they like more physical stuff. So that's when the dancing comes, that's when the sports come out, the fitness. They love to move their bodies and have kind of a direction of where to put it all. So I find that. And then with the younger group, or sorry, the youth, they love themselves, right? They're youth, they're all about them, right? So having a program that focuses on them. They also love drama games. They're obsessed with drama games, art. They love talking, reflecting, and a big thing that they like is they like to talk about their dreams. What do I like to do? So vision boards, you know, journaling, things like that for the youth, they love.
Wonderful. And I think, Caleb, you wanted to add something here.
Yeah, Alicia and Linnea triggered this for me. The kits are huge. So if you're programming, again, I'll just reiterate that it is essential. We provide the kits for our stuff. You can provide lists if that's possible to the families or guardians, and they can get those things. But it's also in how our instructors work. So we give them some tools and some training to make sure that they are checking in more, that they're trying to encourage more of a dialogue. In a classroom setting or in a room, you get body language feedback. You can see when people are drifting. It's a bit more challenging in Zoom. You feel like you're talking into nothing sometimes. If everyone's muted, you can get some visual feedback, like head nodding, thanks, Linnea. But you really have to add a component of that, like instigating interaction, instead of just delivery, like being focused on just pure, instruction or delivery. That there is like that, let's take a break and catch up, or starting the class by doing a round table, things like that. I find in my own instructing online that doing roundtables, breaks, and check-ins, I'm instructing 20-plus-year-olds, not youth, but that really helps in those scenarios as well. So yeah, I think providing or finding resources for instructors or mentors with tips and tricks as to how to keep those things going, that can just be verbal or physical, Thanks, Jen.
Fantastic. So that sort of concludes the key themes that we wanted to talk about today. And we have about 7 minutes left and wanted to really open it up for other questions that the participants may have. So just a reminder to feel free to type those into the Q&A option in Zoom. And I see that Gerard has entered a question here. So how or from where do your activity leaders log on to Zoom? So are they logging in from home, or are they doing that from a device within your organization? So maybe we'll start with that question and see if there's anybody in particular that would like to jump in.
Well, for Christie Lake Kids, we log in, we're working from home. So we log in from our home, but it's really important to make sure that your home is kind of set up for that virtual space and that environment, that feeling. But yeah, that's what we do.
Okay. Caleb or Linnea, did you want to jump in here, or?
Yeah, so at the Boys and Girls Club, we do have sort of a bit of a hybrid programming situation. The core virtual staff are all working from home, but we do have staff working in clubhouses who are also hosting virtual programs. So it's a bit of a mix with us.
Yeah, for us, we have sites we're broadcasting out of. So we have 2 locations. So we have city staff on site, and then the instructor shows up to one of those locations, and then we initiate it from there, putting in COVID protocols and all that to make sure everyone's safe, and all the equipment sanitized, those types of things. But yeah, we broadcast from city facilities.
Okay, great. There's another question here from Josephine. So what is your experience so far with incorporating different learning styles? Does implementing programming that serves various learning styles differ greatly when done online? Is there anybody who'd like to jump in?
Yeah, I find it's actually easier to incorporate different learning styles online than it is in person. When I was doing this program in person, it was really hard to, kind of adapt to everyone's type of learning and what they need exactly during program. I find online, you have the opportunity to slow down a little bit more, be a little bit more intentional and not as educational, if that kind of makes sense. I've had to switch the way that we do program because of the pandemic. It's not so much leadership and community, it's more leadership within self. So we've had a healthy live-in focus. So their mental health, their physical health, their expression, their well-being. And with that, every youth is different in how they handle each one of those things. So we're able to actually ask them, incorporate them, bring them into the how we teach them. And that, again, it's good with engagement. They're in charge of their own learning. I always give that, it's your responsibility. So we're here to help and guide you and support you, but at the end, you're the one learning. So you teach us how to teach you.
Fantastic, thank you. It looked like there was, I think she may have had to have left now. Sabia had a question, Linnea, to connect with you offline. So she's provided her email address here. So maybe if you're awesome, great, you're on it. And she was wondering about how to do that cool feature of using the filters, but I'm afraid now she may have had to leave. But I don't know if you want to give everyone else on the line a quick 10 or 20-second tutorial.
To be honest, a small child taught me how to do this. So in my Zoom format, we have the bottom thing with all the little buttons. There's a mic thing, the camera thing with a little arrow going up top. It should say choose video filter. If you don't have the updated Zoom, it might not be on it. But once you go choose video filter, there's a few options you can have. Look, I'm a pirate now.
Oh, look at that. And Alicia's got the party hat on, I think. Look at that. And Caleb with the glasses. This is awesome. I feel like I'm slow on the uptake here. I need to get with it.
Lucky to work with young people who keep me
Oh,
young.
look at that. Fantastic. All right, everybody. I think just looking at the chat, I don't see anything, or sorry, the Q&A, I don't see anything new that's come in. So I think in terms of wrap up here, just on behalf of OCYI, I would like to thank Caleb, Alicia, and Linnea, and to Crime Prevention Ottawa for being our host today for our virtual Programming 101 event. And thank you very much to all of our participants today who spent their lunch hour with us. We really appreciate your engagement and your time and your questions, and hope that this information is helpful when you go back to your programs. So following the event, if there are any other questions that come through the info@growingupgreat.ca email, we will connect back with you. But otherwise, thanks again to everyone, and wishing you a very good afternoon.